What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic creators Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited to talk to you both about comics. If you're not familiar with Jordan or Patton, you're living under a rock. But Patton, you do stand up. You know, you've been voice of Ratatouille. You've been Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. You're in the new TV show Manhunt. Jordan, you've done stuff with Community Show and with American Dad. You both were working on MODOK TV series, and what's funny is I've noticed a lot about your projects in Hollywood seem to gravitate towards comic books in Hollywood with MODOK or Happy, voicing that TV show. Like there's a correlation there. So have you both always loved comics? Have you been drawn to comics when you were a kid?
I mean, I loved comics when I was a little kid as this thing that just seemed to surround me everywhere. I loved the colors and the big crazy characters, the cartoon shows, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four. But then once I got into high school and when Dark Knight Returns dropped, that began this whole other level. Like this thing that I just loved as pure amusement became genuine fascination.
Yeah, for me, it was always around. My dad was a comic reader growing up. It's how we learned English. And so they were there on my high chair and it was instant love. And we would go to the library and I would run past all the books right to the comic rack. And, I've been
Jordan running to the comics.
just running.
Grabbing up all I can carry. Yeah. And it's been my number one love since. Pat and I are both there every Wednesday.
Yes.
It's never lessened.
I want my comics.
I get it too. Like if I don't get to go to the shop on Wednesdays, I'm like, oh man, this sucks.
Yeah.
It's therapy that I need. It's my only way to get through the week this is my 1 hour or 40 minutes that's for me. And then everything else is for work or my kids or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly.
I usually don't ask this question, but since you guys are comic fans, I kind of am curious. Is there stuff that you're currently reading that you're really digging?
Oh boy, so much stuff. Obviously issue 6 came out last Wednesday, but Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees was just insane. I haven't read issue 2 yet, but I just started Uncanny Valley by Fleet.
Yes,
is amazing. This Black Label Batman First Night thing that DC is doing is pretty great. I mean, right now there are so many great books. I'm just looking at my pull list right now. Local Man is amazing. You go ahead. You go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
So
I'm
good.
taking too much time.
I mean, the X-Men books, I'm loving and mourning the end of Krakoa, but also so excited for what Gail Simone and everyone else has coming up.
Yeah.
I think the Superman books have been amazing. What Williams is doing on Superman. The Trinity, because you've got King on Wonder Woman, which is unbelievable.
Oh,
yes, so good.
Right? Zdarsky on Batman.
And you have Mark Russell doing Dark Age, Batman Dark Age, which is incredible. And you've got King doing Penguin.
Yeah.
So many good DC books right now.
And then even the little goofy ones, David Avallone is doing this, currently doing a title. It's Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft, and it is so funny.
I haven't gotten to read that yet.
Oh my God, they absolutely lean into his racism and misogyny and what an awful person it is, and they make it kind of funny. I cannot believe what they're pulling off. It's hilarious.
It's so good. So where was it, your love for comics, where was this shift where you decided, hey, I want to get into writing comics and creating them for myself?
Well, you started first, Patton. You wrote them before we even started working together.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I would always get the trade paperbacks that would have script pages in the back. In the Neil Gaiman's Dream Country, there's the whole script for the Calliope issue where you really see how he breaks down the visuals. Same with the script books for Alan Moore's From Hell. I just read those over and over again. And and I just was always I was very vocal about my love of comic books. So, and I know this sounds kind of cheesy, but when I became more famous, the comic companies were like, "Do you want to do something?" So I pitched something to DC. I pitched, so I was able to work with a lot of the IP coming up, and then when I met Jordan, then that led to the MODOK show. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of writing of comics. I was familiar enough with the form.
Yeah, I feel like we went about it backwards, where we made TV so then we could make comics.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because MODOK was the first thing I wrote, the comic that we did, the 4-issue comic MODOK Head Games, that Pat and I wrote together, and that was my first experience, and that's where we met Scott Hepburn, our artist and co-creator of Minor Threats, and it was like, I knew it was going to be fun. I didn't know it was going to be this fun kind of thing, and it was like, how do I do this forever? I love TV, I love movies, I'll always be, working in that medium, but the immediacy, the intimacy of comics, where it's just, your brains and Scott's brain, and that's what the page is, and you work with these amazing colorists and letterers, and the collaboration part was incredible. So after MODOK, we were like, we got to do more.
Yeah. I don't want to spend much time on MODOK because I want to hop into Minor Threats, but I have to ask, since I have you both on, and you might not even be able to remember, but in issue 2 of MODOK, one of you wrote that you hinted at NFL Super Pro. You mentioned one of my favorite comic book heroes. It was a joke about like, oh, couldn't they find like the superhero who's a NFL superstar? And I want to know who did that, because I have a soft spot for Super Pro.
I think
who?
NFL Super Pro was the superhero in the 90s that Marvel teamed up with the NFL. And Fabian Nicieza wrote it, and is very vocal about how he wrote it for a paycheck. So I like to constantly troll him on Twitter and ask him questions about Super Pro, and he somewhat humors me. But it's funny. I did a Venom project for Marvel, where originally it was going to be a baseball thing they're going to give away at a Mets game, and then it ended up being a 5-page story as things go. But I had pitched them doing MLB Super Pro, and they're like, we cannot touch. There are legal things. We can never go back to that well. Please stop pitching NFL, MLB Super Pro stuff. So that's the status of Super Pro right now.
That's a really charming thing about comics, is a lot of times they're like, look, we got to do this partnership. We got to sell books. So didn't either Marvel or DC do a team up with Raytheon, like literally a defense contractor, and made the defense contractors the team of heroes that team up with? It was insane. It was
that didn't go well for them.
No, it did not.
No. So, Jordan, never stop pitching Super Pro. I'm just gonna. That's my advice to you. It's not solid comic advice, but that's my advice to you. So, where did this idea then of Minor Threats? Because that's how I really both discovered you both as comic creators. I fell into the world, loving the world that you both created. Along with Scott and the rest of the team. Where did this idea for Minor Threats come about?
It started off, I had an idea for a Batman story, but at the time that I came up with it, I was really happy with it. But I was like, I've been working with other IP for so long, and I'm going to be, and I'd gotten very busy in my career, as had Jordan. I was like, I'm going to break my ass on this thing. I'm not going to own it. I won't get paid all that well. I won't be able to do a lot with it. And then when I told the idea to Jordan, he's like, well, why don't we just create our own world and do, kind of stand-ins for these guys? So that's where Minor Threats, Twilight City, Redport, all that came from. It's, let's just create our own world. And clearly we're influenced by Astro City and the original run of Suicide Squad. But yeah, I have a lot of affection for working class supervillains that are like, I just want to rob a bank and live high for 8 months and then do it again. I don't want to do these dumb esoteric statements, so that whole thing was a great world to kind of delve into.
Yeah, for years I've been wanting to do something either with the Rogues or an original thing, or I love, like Pat said, that type of jobber working class villain, and I think we had no shortage of ideas when it came to building our own.
I love it so much.
So, like, that's got to be part of the fun aspect of creating this universe. Like, you have new characters popping up, like, in this newest arc, you have, the Holiday Gang, and like you have so many different like villains and heroes that pop up. Like just coming up with random superhero or supervillain ideas, that's got to be a lot of fun, I assume.
Well, I mean, I have notebooks full of. I was always planning to do some kind of thing. The Holiday Squad came from another book that I never did, but the idea of a supervillain team where, I mean, Jordan especially loves theme supervillain teams, and I just love the idea. The one wrinkle we added to this one was the guy who's representing Easter is like, you know, I'll put the friggin' bunny ears on, but I'm just a demolition guy. And like, even within the working class superheroes, there are guys even below that are like, this is nonsense. Fine, you know, whatever.
So good. So when you guys pitched this idea, you know, did you have it fully figured out, you know, when you took it to Dark Horse, or how did that kind of partnership with them come about?
I think they had contacted you, right, Patton, about
Yeah,
doing
they were like,
something?
we want to hear pitches, and so I done um uh, a Black Hammer issue, and that came out really well. And they were like, if you have any ideas of your own, we would totally get behind it. And then so once Jordan and I kind of formed this world, I'm like, let's take it to Dark Horse. I think that they're gonna not only get behind it, but let us roll it out the way we want to roll it out.
Mhm.
And that was very important, you know. And also, just they're a legacy company right now, and they're a legacy company of genuine quality and risk taking, and I just love that about them, you know.
And I think we had a lot in place in that, like, Patton, you had this, you know, beautiful structure of the summer movie between Batman and Joker, but seeing it from the perspective of these C-listers and how
Yes.
life is hell. So why don't they take things into their own hands? But, you know, that was there from the beginning. And then I think, you know, with Frankie, I'd always wanted to do like a second generation supervillain who wants out of that life and then gets pulled in.
Yeah.
So we kind of had all the building blocks very early on, and then we started to kind of flesh out the team, who were, you know, the most interesting characters to put on this crew with her, and
Right.
sort of the big tentpole moments of where are they going. But, you know, really the biggest thing that influenced the book was when we started getting art back from Scott and seeing the city he was building, and this idea of this, you know, Twilight City being this place that's weathered 60 years of superhero continuity. No one's cleaned it up. There's no damage control. There's no reset. And that really influenced, you know, this kind of quests where do we take the characters? What do they run into?
Yeah.
The city itself is this character, this thing that has to be survived. And I think as we started moving through, right, that really started to come into the story.
When Jordan came up with the phrase, a city that has suffered 60 years of comic book continuity, and what that would look like and what that would do to the citizens, that opened everything up, both in terms of Scott's art, our writing. That just made a lot of things clear all at the same time.
Well, it's such a, if no one's read Minor Threats, like that concept of, you know, like you have a Batman archetype who loses his Robin to a Joker and it just goes on like a hunt, and like the villains are like, listen, we've got to figure this out because we don't want to get in trouble.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, but also it's the idea of, it's not that they're in trouble, it's that our way of life is now over unless we hand this guy over. They are now, the superheroes are coming down like a ton of bricks. It is turning into a police state. Things were nicer then. I mean, look, I'm obviously cribbing the plot of Fritz Lang's M, but it's the same thing. That's a very real life thing. When Bonnie and Clyde were out joyriding and thrill killing, people like Pretty Boy Floyd and John Dillinger were like, oh, they're making it so much worse for us. Like now, J. Edgar Hoover can form, you know, we've got public enemies out there. It's like, we're professionals. We're not having a temper tantrum out here. We're professional robbers. And these two teenagers are messing. So that whole idea is a very real thing in life. You know, sometimes it's both the amateurs and the esoteric big artists working on the giant canvas make it really hard for other people.
Well, you put it in a really interesting way. I remember, Patton, early on, you're like, can you imagine being Calculator Man who the 80s happen and suddenly Frank Miller and Alan Moore show up and Joker's
Right.
just shooting people and they're like, what happened? We used to just like calculator based crime, like math crime. And now these people are getting shot and that guy's getting his back broken. And like, it's
Yeah.
got to be so alarming for these lower tier villains who just used to put on these costumes, commit these crimes, and kind of that was it. That suddenly the
I'm not
world
trying to go to jail for murder. I'm trying to make money. I don't get any money if I kill people. What the hell is wrong with everybody?
It's like, what are you doing? So obviously at the time that we're talking, you have a second arc. You had a spinoff with the alternates. Before that, you had announcement of a minor character in Minor Threats now that Kyle Starks is writing with Barfly. Like, did you have a vision for this whole world, like when you produced the first, or like once it started to kind of gain ground that you're like, let's just run with it?
We approached each thing like, let's put everything we've got into this story and don't write with the idea of a franchise in mind. Go whole hog on this. I think a lot of times when things are written with the idea of a franchise in mind, they second guess and hold stuff back because like, we got to keep some stuff in the tank, put it all out there, and then see what comes out of it organically. So, you know, we had it was just going to end the way it ended. And then we've got more. And then other people, Tim Seeley approached us, Kyle Starks. You know, the fact that it's happening organically is very exciting and very energizing.
Yeah, I mean, we're having a blast. And I think for us, the thing that kind of grounds or connects these other stories is that Minor Threats is about telling a superhero story from a point of view you've never seen. You've never seen it from these guys on the street. And I think that's what all the other books kind of have in common is like, I've never seen a self-help group for characters who've been rebooted. You know, that was kind of Tim's pitch and things like that, or a Minion coming of age story that Kyle's doing with Barfly. And I think that's, to me, what's hopefully exciting is everyone's talking about superhero fatigue, and it's like people don't want the same story over and over again. Tell us a story we've never seen before. What's the subgenre? You know, for us, I've never seen a Coen Brothers-esque kind of Fargo superhero story, and that's what we did with Minor Threats. So I think that's what we kind of look for in these expanding universe books.
Yeah.
So, and if you haven't checked out Minor Threats or the alternates, go pick these up. They're both available on trade. But like, what is it then like as you created this universe, this world in Minor Threats to then kind of, I mean, you're giving it to talented creators of Tim Seeley and Kyle Starks, but like, how does that work for you with writing and kind of allowing them to play in your sandbox a little bit?
We're involved, but we encourage we want to work with these people because we love their work. You know, it's like
we're fans. I'm not gonna go and put my fingerprints all over. Like I'm gonna get a Tim Seeley comic that I get to read. I'm gonna get a Kyle Starks comic with Ryan Brown art. Why do I want to interfere with that? I want them to go do it.
Yeah,
you know.
We make ourselves available. Like we're here as much as you need us. Some of them will co-write or other ones will just be way more hands off. It really depends on what the writer wants to do. And we have a few ones that are haven't been announced yet. That'll probably be announced at Comic-Con. But like they all just come out of, we're so excited to be playing with these people. You know, the idea of them being excited playing our sandbox is second to us. So
yeah. Well, and that's a telling. Like you both have mentioned that you're comic book fans, right? And you mentioned Local Man earlier with Tony Fleece and Tim Seeley. Like they're creative talents that are crushing it. I had Kyle on the show a little bit ago, and we were talking about Barfly because it had been announced. I was super excited. And one of the things that was fascinating to me is I've consumed everything about Minor Threats, but I miss Barfly. I completely, and then like when it got announced, I was like, no way is he in this book throughout, because he's just a background character in your first book.
We didn't even, that was something that Scott drew in the background in the first issue. And before Kyle Starks came to us, we fell in love with him. We just loved him. We saw the early sketches, Little Shit Eater, our punk rock human fly hybrid. We didn't know what we were going to do with him. We knew we loved it. And then when Kyle came to us with the story, we're like, oh, Jesus, this is the best. Best of all possible worlds.
So good. Because again, like And then I'm reading the second arc here of Minor Threats, and I'm like, oh, poor Barfly. There he is again, hanging from Christmas tree lights around the truck. Like,
He's okay. I assure you, he's okay.
Yeah, he'll be okay.
I would hope so. He's got a series coming up. So now that you're you're in the midst of this conversation, second issue of the second arc has come out. I believe the third comes out June 5th.
Yeah.
How has it been for you, getting to kind of now, like you said, you wanted to tell the story you wanted to tell, but now you're expanding into this universe that you've created, dig deeper into Playtime or, Frankie's story a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. We're following up with the, oh, well, now you've won, but what does that mean? A lot of times in life, success means a lot more work and a lot more tension. And we want, especially in crime, and in business, as you see, there's a lot of overlap here. We wanted, and also that very peculiar thing that happens to a lot of people where they're like, I still crave the streets. Maybe it was the struggle that I liked, not this destination where now I'm safe and secure, but also inert and kind of static.
There's definitely lots of talks too of never wanting to repeat ourselves. We could go do another fun caper with them, but we did that. So we were kind of looking at other crime fiction that excited us and talking about, what's the subgenre this go around. If the first one was more kind of like a Fargo-y or kind of Warriors Survive the Night story, what are we doing this time? And it was like, oh, let's do a big sprawling kind of Godfather 2 crime epic, because now she has the crime, but what does that mean? And I think that was really fun, and it freed us up to do something different.
Yeah. Does writing, co-writing, I've had co-writers on and stuff. How does that process for you two work as, kind of writing the script, pitching it to each other? Is it something that you're kind of in the same area, or how does that process work?
It's fun. It's like two of us nerding out and being like, "How about this idea? Oh, I love that!" Like we break we break the story together and we write most of the time together. Sometimes we'll break off scenes and trade back.
There's a lot of one of us jumping out of a chair and going, "Oh, wait, okay, but what if like?" There's a lot of that.
Yeah,
and with like these spinoffs and things like that, you guys kind of look at it more as a consulting role. Like you're there if need be. You guys are more hands off on that. It seems like.
It just depends on each project's different.
Okay.
Some of them come in kind of a general idea and we'll flesh them out. And sometimes we'll co-write, like alternates we co-wrote. Other ones, Kyle kind of had an idea he wanted to do and then came back to us with it, like kind of fully ready to go. It just everyone is handled differently, I would say.
So we kind of hinted at the alternates. If someone hasn't picked up, we've kind of described what Minor Threats is. Well, what would your elevator pitch for alternates then if someone hasn't gotten to read it? Because I think it is a fantastic story that in superhero world that hasn't gotten explored really.
What happens when a basic 4-color classic superhero gets deconstructed and evolved as in Vertigo comics and then has to go back to their normal life? How do you deal with that? Oh my God, I just articulated that so badly. Jordan, you do that.
No, that was great. It's about a bunch of superheroes who ended up saving the world, going into this other dimension where they live these mature reader Vertigo-ized lives where their powers and consciousnesses were expanded, and then they were pulled back to their original kind of, two-dimensional superhero world. And they are having a hard time re-assimilating back into their old lives, having been gods and this and that over in this other universe. So it's a support group for characters who've been rebooted and then rebooted back. And
it's so good. Like what I love is, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of times people go, "Oh, we got superhero fatigue," and like, no, we have bad superhero story fatigue, like or same old story.
Yeah, they're right. That term, again, it's a very clickable term and it gets eyes on a story, I'm sure. But no, what we have is there's been a glut of, look, there was the same thing happened with, as a stand-up comedian, there wasn't bad comedy in the late 80s. There was just too many clubs and they weren't enough comics to go around, so they just started booking anything. But they were booking jugglers and magicians and R-rated hypnotists, and people will go, wow, people are sick of comedy. It's like, you're not even giving them comedy anymore. This isn't stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is so amazing, you're just not getting it anymore. And a lot of this latest spate of superhero movies, I'm sorry, they're not innovative and creative. They're just taking old stories that we've seen a million times and go, but the person can fly in it. Like, well, who cares? So there's always going to be amazing superhero stories.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at what's going on in the comics publishing world, not just in the indie labels like Vault and Aftershock and Image and Dark Horse. DC and Marvel are doing insanely good stuff right now. They're doing the kind of stuff that the movie makers should be looking at. And the biggest case in point is X-Men 97, which isn't just a great superhero show. It's a great show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, things like Boys and come along and it's like, oh, there's a new way to do this. There's a different way to story in it. And then suddenly no one has fatigue for the Boys and they get another spinoff.
Exactly.
It's just, it's good storytelling.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate what you both are bringing to the table then with the storytelling. I remember when I picked up Minor Threats, it was a world that I fell in love with instantly. These were characters that you like, they felt familiar, like because I've been ingrained in comic book, but they were different. And there was a unique story to go along with this familiarity. And I think it works really well with it.
Thanks. And that was kind of the fun of the series, I think, with the flashbacks and the way we kind of designed it was we wanted you to think, oh, that's the Riddler. I know this guy. And then show you this trauma. And why would someone put on a costume and live this life? And how do we get there? And kind of investigate these characters like we haven't seen.
Yeah.
That's so good. Well, I could talk to you both about Minor Threats forever because it's fantastic. But I do want to respect both yours' time. So we're still in the midst of Minor Threats Volume 2 coming out. Barfly is coming out this summer. Is there anything else that you all are working on or that you're creating that you would like to just have a chance to plug that you can?
There's a lot more.
Not right now, but there are announcements forthcoming, and that's all we can say.
Oh, well, we are doing more Minor Threats stuff with Roblox and Fresh Cut. Yeah. So they're going to look for that. There's going to be all new missions. There's going to be game takeovers, new kind of costumes and weapons and stuff that you can unlock in the world of Roblox. So that'll be coinciding with the next few issues coming out.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Jordan, Patton, where can people follow along with both of you to just stay up to date? So like, I know there are announcements coming, like when can they, where can they follow along to hear these announcements?
I'm on all the platforms. Insta, Twitter, Threads, Bluesky. I've got a website, pattonoswalt.com. Jordan, you are?
I'm Blum Jordan, but we also, on all those things, we also have Minor Threats. DH is, we have a team who's doing all the marketing for us. They're amazing. It's the best place if you follow them on Twitter or Instagram. They're at Minor Threats DH, and that's the best place if you want to stay up to date.
Yeah, gang, if you are not picking up this universe of Minor Threats, go back, pick up Volume 1, then get the alternates. It's in trade. And then we're in the midst of, like I said, at the time of recording this, issues 1 and 2 of Volume 2 has come out. There's 2 more coming out in this arc?
Yep, 2 more in this arc. And pre-order Barfly. You're not going to want to miss that.
Oh, boy.
Kyle Starks and Ryan Brown. Like, Ryan Brown's artwork on the 8 Billion Genies?
8 Billion Genies. Oh my God. Yeah.
And then
you're going to be very happy with this one.
And Kyle Stark just brings the humor and is a great comic writer. And so, like, again, go on your shops, pre-order these things. You're not going to be disappointed, gang. But Patton, Jordan, thank you so much just for taking some time to talk about comics with me.
Thanks for having us on, man. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. It was a blast.
Absolutely. And with that being said, gang, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.
Nerd out.